Now, your childhood plays a massive role in how you look at money or the relationship that you have with money. Now, let me take you back to my childhood. So, before I was born, my mom wished for a girl. She really wanted to have a girl. And funny enough, I was born and I was a boy. I looked like a girl. So you can imagine, right? So you have sort of what you prayed for, but it's not exactly, you know, how you prayed for, if is the right way to put it. So she wanted a girl, and then now here's a child that looks like a girl, but it's not a girl. So I needed to say that she used to dress me up like a girl. Like I used to wear the pinks, all these bright colors, the oranges, and even my hair, the way she would, do my hair, it was more curly, and it just made me look like a girl. So when when I was young, before I went to preschool, so we travel by minibus taxis, and so every time we in a taxi, a lot of the times I would actually be given money. So strangers would look at this cute little thing, and then they would give my mom money. It was just incredible, but it was also irritating, from my side, because you have all this attention that you don't even know what to do with it. I mean, I'm still a child. Then I went to preschool. Went to preschool, and there also I had issues because now the boys didn't want to play with me because I looked like a girl, and the girls didn't want to play with me because I was a boy, right? Then I think I had some kind of an identity crisis. Now you can imagine being at that age, and then already you're battling with exactly who am I. Um, so it just continued. Then I had to then go and live with my great grand, Okoko. That's what we used to call it. Um, so I went to live with my great grand, and at the time I'd grown up a little bit, still within my, early childhood. And now at the time I was very tall for my age, and I was very thin. So I was very tall and I was very thin. So I went to live with Ukoko. Ukoko was an amazing, beautiful woman. She was that woman. Nekanesithunzi, man. In Zulu, we say nekanesithunzi. She had presence. So whenever she enters a room, you notice her. I mean, and it showed within, um, you know, um, the community where we lived. Then there was respect. I mean, I remember that some of my cousins will come and visit over the holidays, and of course there were girls, and they were in that age where they started dating, and no boy would come into the yard. I mean, we had one of those. It was like a plot. It was a plot actually. It was big yards, and no boy would come in. Mm. And my grandmom was pretty old at the time, but they wouldn't, because there was that respect, for her. So I lived with my grand, and at the time I mean, I was still battling with this identity, crisis. So I still had this identity crisis, but it was not that bad. I think it was just the issue then. It was this, the height, and just being thin, and yeah, it just all this attention that I was getting, which I didn't like, so to speak. So then I was teased, and at some point I was bullied as well. So yeah, so it continued. So I did my, I don't know, is it grade one, yeah, grade one. We used to call it, your standard one. We did, yeah, your standard one until standard two. So I think when I was in standard two, because that was the year before I went to live with my mom again. So I, when I was young, I lived with my mom. Then I had to go and live with my great grand, and then I moved back to live with my mom again. So it was just the year before I went to live with my mom again. And so it was an everyday thing when, being teased, being bullied. I was just used to it, right? And somehow it had made me, very isolated. I was this child that would go to school and I would just, keep quiet in the classroom. They would tease me, the class would laugh and whatever. And I would go home. And then I would just play by myself, right? So this particular day, um, we were in the classroom and, you know, and one of my classmate, um, cracked a joke, um, you know, um, obviously using me as a reference, and the class just burst out laughing. So everybody started laughing, including the teacher. So it used to happen a lot, these incidences. But that day, that particular day, my teacher also laughed. So I don't know what trigger, went off by that fact that my teacher laughed, because I somehow, it took me to my all-time low. I was not okay. I was not okay. I remember walking back from school, and and I was just crying. I was crying, and I mean, we used to walk. It was about maybe 7 kilometers, from school to home, and through that distance, there would be, some groups that would come, they would tease me. Some would even kick me at some time. It was my daily life. And that day, I didn't even care. I didn't even care because something had happened that day. And just for the fact that my teacher laughed as well. So I got home, and so I never used to tell Ukoko these things because I knew the type of person Ukoko was. Like, she was very protective. So if you told her that you have been teased, she would go and wait for you, by the gate. And look, she was just that type. She was very protective of me. So, so yeah, so I got in the house, and that day I couldn't contain it. I couldn't contain it. So Gogo was, started asking, what's wrong, Danam Danam? What's wrong, my boy? You don't look okay. And so then, I don't know, somehow I told Gogo about the whole, the entire incident, and how my teacher also laughed as well. So she didn't react in a very like loud kind of way. She was just like, okay, oh, I'm so sorry, my boy, everything will be okay. And she gave me a hug, and I somehow forgot about it. And 2 days passed, and on the third day, so as I said, Gogo was very strategic, man. She was very orderly. Everything happened by order, and she was very consistent, right? So that day in the morning, so there was routines. Like, she had a routine. Like, whether Gogo is sick or what, there is a routine, right? In the morning, she wake up. She would wake up very early. She will go and, I mean, we used to live in a semi-rural area. So she would go and that time it was winter. So she would go and prepare. We had a coal stove. Yeah, stove samalaki. We had a coal stove, and she would prepare, the stove, so that when I come in and take a bath, then I'll be, close to the stove, so I wouldn't feel cold. So we had what we call a vascom. So it was just it's a vascom. It was a dish, but a big dish that you can wash yourself on, so you can bathe there. But of course, it was basically, it was hilarious in terms, now you think about it. Well, not hilarious because I think it will, just belittle the effects of all of that. And then considering there's still a lot of people that probably still use that, which is unfortunate in this day and age. But yeah, so you try and wash yourself, and using the basically um, this dish, this big dish. So so she would wake up early, and so she would prepare the stove. Then she would wake me up. Then I knew that I would get out of bed already. My School clothes are nicely ironed on top of a bed, and I would take off my pajamas and I'll put them in the bin, and then I'll go and take a bath, right? So yeah, so that day, and in winter it was terrible because you can imagine you're trying to get closer to the heat, closer to the stove, and at times the stove bends you, you know. So yeah, you can. So winter, one had these spots, because you were burned by the coal stove. But anyway, so I took a bath, and but while I'm still in the process, taking a bath and going to put on my school clothes, I see that Gogo is also preparing herself, right? And she takes out this dress. I used to call it the Rolls Royce of Gogo's dresses. Now I know that when Gogo, takes out that dress, there is a function of some sort. You know, it's either a wedding, an important event, whatever the case might be. But it was a very special occasion. So Gogo is taking out this dress. So I'm asking Gogo, what's happening? Uyaguphi? Like, why are you taking this dress? You are preparing yourself, going where? I know that it's not your payday, payout day. So she used to get the pension payout. So I know about those days. Or she would go for checkups at the clinic. And Gogo was strong. Gogo was strong. I think at the time she was what, around maybe 70. Yeah, but she would still like walk that 10Ks, 7Ks, 5Ks to the clinic. She didn't take the bus. And I never understood why, but she was very strong, very, very strong. And she loved independence. She liked doing things herself, even at an old age. So now she's preparing. Okay, anyway, getting on, like I put on my school clothes, and and the breakfast was always late on the table. Before I obviously after I put on my school clothes. So as I said, everything was orderly, right? There was a routine. Then I start eating, but still Gogo is preparing. Then it's time to go out, and then Gogo is also going out with me. Again, Gogo, where are you going? It's like, hey, just leave me be, all right? Just go to school and don't be late. Anyway, so I rush to school, and getting in the classroom, and I think it was the second period. Yeah, we used to call them periods. I don't know now what they call them, or lessons, but it was the second period. Yeah, and we are in the classroom. We're busy with our work, and then a fellow classmate, a fellow, you know, student comes in and talks to the teacher, and all of a sudden the teacher calls me in front and tells me that, look, we are needed by the principal's office. All right, now if you are called to the principal's office, or you are summoned to the principal's office, at the time you would be very scared, because we had a principal that used to beat us up. And if you do, yeah, something wrong, she would beat you up. She had a cane that she used to beat us up with. You wouldn't walk for the next 3 weeks after you've been beaten up. So you can imagine now. I'm thinking, what have I done? So so it's like, no, both me and you need to go to the principal's office. So we are needed there. So anyway, we're going, walking to the principal's office, and I'm just shit scared. I'm like terrified. Then just by the corner, and here's this principal's office window, and I see Ugogo sipping on tea, having a laugh with the principal. Now, the school that I went to, the primary school that I went to, was sort of like a family primary school. I don't know if you have that, or you had that growing up, where your uncles, your mother, your everybody went to that school, right? It was just that family school. So, our family was sort of like known there. The principal had, there was that relationship. So Ukoko, was even worse, because she was that person within the community that was respected. So yeah, she had, yeah, she enjoyed that, um, basically I would say respect. Yeah. So she's busy laughing and having choice assorted biscuits. I don't know if you still remember those, and tea. So now I'm really, really, really now I'm now overly scared now, right? So I get into the office, or we get into the office, me and the teacher, And so obviously, the introduction, this is, well, yeah, I think there was an introduction to say, okay, this is, Kevin's Gogo, right? And she's here because she has a concern. Now, the other day, Gavin came home and she was crying, and Gavin mentioned that he was teased in the classroom, and you also laughed. So you didn't actually try to intervene. You just were part of the whole party, so to speak, in terms of the Gavin being teased. So now the teacher looks at me and says, "Oh, but Gavin, you didn't tell me. I didn't know that you took it so hard to the point that you can even tell Ugogo, and then you went home crying. I don't know anything about this." So the principal was the strict kind of guy. It's like, no, 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 but that's unacceptable. In any manner, you're not supposed to. You are the teacher. You should know better, right? So anyway, the teacher apologized, and then we're dismissed. So you can imagine now the walk from the principal's office to the classroom. And now my teacher was just quiet. Like, she was quiet, man. So you can imagine the silent treatment. It's not nice. It's not nice at all. So then we get into the classroom, and the first thing that my teacher says, she makes an announcement, that, okay, can I have your attention, please? Now, please refrain from teasing Gavin, because if you do that, Gavin will probably go again and tell his great grandmother. And the great grandmother will come and report us to the principal. So you can imagine, right? You can imagine how I felt. And you can imagine what happened to the classroom, because now the kids started laughing. It was like hilarious. But over and above that, I became a snitch. I became a snitch. And so that then just created a whole lot of problems for me, in a sense that I now, firstly, I was like, but why did Gogo do this to me? And then I somehow, my confidence level just went straight out of the window. And that's where my low self esteem just became severe, hectically severe. So now I don't have the confidence, because I I have, I couldn't stand up for myself. So now all of these things are starting to play out, that you can't stand up for yourself. You've always been teased. You've always been bullied. And I somehow I started to create this cave around me, and I got inside. And I was now this child that was now in this cave. My confidence level was just non-existent. So now that's now the base, right? That's now the foundation. Because remember, I'm still young. So then this becomes, I grew up with this thing. I grew up with this, lack this confidence, suffering from low self-esteem, to the point that I have I don't know if you call it a second persona. I have this other Gavin. I had this other voice, and this seemed like the you have this negative side of you. You have this evil side of you that always fighting with this good side of you. To the point where I lacked confidence, man. I would shoot myself up, like, with anything I tried to do. It was like self sabotage. I was self sabotaging myself, and it was just like, it's just hectic, right? And then I grew up. I went to high school. It was the same thing. I went to tertiary. It was the same thing. I started working. It was the same thing. So I would still achieve, there and there. But if I had the confidence, I would definitely would have done so much more. But I look at my life now, and I like to believe that everything happens for a reason, because the advocacy and everything that I'm involved with now, it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't gone through all of that, right? So, but yeah, I mean, the promotions, maybe your manager wants to promote you, but you always know you can't because it's you don't have the trust. You don't have the self trust, and that's what exactly low self esteem does, especially if it's within the severe level. So because that's what I call it. I actually um, put it as a dreaded disease. Yeah, because it was on that level. It was just crazy. I would always be in the house. Our relationship suffered. Just so many things. Yeah, I didn't have that confidence. I never used to compete because I didn't have the self trust. I didn't have mentors because, again, it goes with that self trust again. You'll be challenged. And so it was just one of those, it became a recurring thing. But now I wanted now to link that without really going far off in terms of money. How does that link with money? Now, remember, or what I like to believe that, making money, being successful around money, and just being successful in general requires confidence. And, when you look at now my childhood, my confidence was taken away from me. And for the longest of time, I somehow subconsciously blamed Gogo for that day. But last year, because I had to turn around, just like I can't live like this anymore. I started to realize that, look, I'm a parent to two beautiful girls, and I will do anything to protect them, right? And Gogo, that's what she did. So I had to acknowledge that. But most importantly, I also needed to acknowledge that I needed to understand where the little that 10-year-old Gavin was coming from, right? Because of the foundation and everything else. And I needed to also understand that, because I think in some way I also blame my mother, but you need to understand all of these things. And I think just when I started to think about this in a very different light, then even my relationship with money somehow started to look differently. I started to feel worthy again. I started to realize, man, I deserve great things. I deserve to be rich, to be wealthy. I deserve to have all these opportunities. Why not? Um, because you when you start now being aware of certain things, when you start to grow up mentally, and you start to look at life differently. But I really believe that a lot of us we might be struggling when it comes to our relationship with money because of our childhoods, because of how we're raised, and this also goes in, when, for example, you hear maybe your parents, your grandparents, and people around you talk about money being evil, in the sense that they make money such a bad thing, and they make rich people like the bad people, and you somehow despise rich people. You start despising money, but you envy the rich people, and you want the nice things, but so you start getting confused about all of these. So there's a lot of things that needs to change around how we look at money, how we perceive money, and then the relationship will start to change positively when we start dealing with a lot of the structural issues that a lot of us have gone through. And I really believe that some of us are really stuck in the past when it comes to the relationship with money, and just because of how we were raised in our childhood. So, I think what this message is really around to say, let us start interrogating. Let's go back. You want to fix today. Unfortunately, at times you need to go back. You need to go back to the past. You need to go back in terms of how you were raised. You need to go back, um, you know, not just in terms of your upbringing, and what are the things that went wrong that needs to be fixed. And I know it's going to be difficult at times because sometimes our parents think that we are taking them, we are taking how they raise us, and it's not that. It's just on the basis that you need to fix yourself. You need to be a better person. You need to be a better parent. You need to live a better life, and then all that can happen when you start fixing, right? And at times we need to go back to where it started, and just see what were the mistakes, the cracks that happened there, and how we need to now solve it so that we can be able to move forward in a much better and much more productive life that we are all